Hi, my name is Quasar Thakore Padamsee, and I'm a theatre director based out of Bombay. Theatre wala, theatre lover, also a theatre director. This is a little weird for me because I love the theatre. I love the fact that it is live. I love the fact that it cannot be replicated in any other medium, and here I am talking about the theatre in another medium that is completely not live, and we aren't sharing the same space, and we aren't, able to hear each other live and breathe and listen. And this is strange, but this is kind of the new world we live in. It's the world that everyone has had to adjust and adapt, and that's the amazing thing about the theatre. For 2,000 years, people have been talking about it dying. I mean, it's the oldest art form. Ever since the first person went out and basically saw a woolly mammoth and came back and told someone else about it in whatever sign language or whatever way that they were able to communicate through physicality. That was the moment theatre was born, the moment storytelling was born. And it is easily the oldest way of entertainment and art in the world. But every time something new comes along, the death of theatre is heralded. Oh, it's dying. Oh my God, it's about to go. The advent of the book and printing press said, oh, people are going to read, nobody's going to watch anything. The advent of celluloid and cinema, the advent of television, the advent of the internet, the advent of currently OTT platforms. But the amazing thing about the theatre, and the thing that I love about it is resilient, because it is a completely human interaction. And that's really what we're all about. That's really what the theatre is. It's about sharing a space with another human being and hearing their stories or a story that someone has put across. And that's why I love it. And that's why this feels really weird. But we are in a digital age, and we must embrace all things that are digital. My love for theatre actually happened because I fell in love with a moment. I was in the 10th standard. I was acting in a play. Up until then, all the theatre you'd done as a child was, the Panchatantra as a play where you're playing animals and, the kingdom of Wadznooki or Ivan the Good and these little fables that you were kind of doing. But this was the first time I was in a real play. It was a play called The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. And it's about a family and dealing with really human emotions and difficult emotions and complex emotions, and about the relationship of a boy, in relation to his family and how he wants to leave and move away from the town they're in, but he's being tugged back because of his duties. And it really was it's a fantastic piece of writing. And it was during a production of that. I was in the 10th standard, I was 15 years old, and I think it was the second performance. We had only 2 performances of this play. It was in the second performance where I was standing on stage in the middle of the closing monologue, and I paused dramatically to create some kind of effect, I assume. And I literally heard the audience pause with me. And I did what I would never want an actor to do after, but I completely kind of felt, oh my God, this is the best feeling in the world, and I want this to stay for the rest of my life. I want this. At that moment, I knew that I wanted the theatre to be part of my life in some way, or rather, I wanted to be part of the theatre in some way. It's a terrible thing for an actor to do, to kind of have that epiphany right on stage. But that's what happened. Fortunately, I finished the play without kind of blanking out or whatever. But I knew at that moment, okay, this is what I wanted. And it kind of filled a gap inside of me. For a long time, I struggled because in school or college, you kind of fight between the arts and sport, and is it cool to play cricket and also do the theatre and do plays? But I genuinely enjoyed it. And I discovered that moment then, and I knew no matter what else I did, I would be interested in that. Since then, my love for theatre has only grown, and I now have a slightly different perspective on it. I no longer act. much to the grateful thanks of many audience members. But I believe that the theatre is actually a form of anthropology. It's a way we study other human beings under a microscope, in a small, confined way, and we discover them. So every play that I have worked on, or everything that I've ever done, is about studying human beings and human behavior. And you go out and you look at amazing, amazing things. And that is what is so powerful about the theatre. Because you discover different lands, and you discover how to be better as a human being. Because it takes life and puts it in the microscope, and for 3 or 4 months we're studying that before we put up a play. The thing about finding theatre, when it made me whole and kind of locked it up, was I was in college. And as with all college things, the college play was on, we were all involved, and I was very, very fortunate where I found a group of people who were as passionate or as crazy about the theatre as I was. And that was very, very gratifying. And then, of course, you leave college, you get a job. Interestingly, particularly given that this is TEDxMICA, I got a job in advertising. And I enjoyed it. I think I was decent at it. I had a certain flair for it. I enjoyed playing with words. I was a copywriter. I enjoyed putting things across. But when I came home in the evenings, I found my life a little bit emptier. I found it harder to go to rehearsal. I found it harder to balance your work-theatre balance. I stopped doing as much theatre, and theatre was no longer as much a part of my life. And that was a gap that was problematic for me personally. And interestingly enough, I and a couple of my friends, Carl Alfonso and a lady called Toral Shah, we had a conversation where we wondered, hey man, what if we try and do it full time? And interestingly, at the same time, we got a call from a man. I remember his name was Bhisht, and he called to say that he was a 45-year-old atomic inspector at the BARC, and he had really been passionate about the theatre in school and college, and once he got his job, he just lost touch with it. And now that he was relatively settled and had fixed hours and was not under the same pressures that he was when he was a young man starting out, he wanted to get back to the theatre. And the three of us sat and we had this conversation. This is Carl, Toral and myself, and said, do we want to be that guy? Do we want to think, what if I had given it that chance? So we already had a small little theatre company, and we decided, okay, we're going to go full time. And that's really how my career, my life in the theatre began. It was to fill a gap I didn't know existed until I was doing something else and was unable to do theatre, unable to be in a rehearsal room, unable to work with people daily. And that was kind of an epiphany for me. What also happened after that Bhisht conversation is we realized that a lot of people like us who are interested and have the love for the theatre but don't have the means. The theatre per se was losing too many people in that gap between college and getting your job and getting stable in that job. And an idea for a youth program was started. At that time, it was only as a festival to recognize young talent all around. And the festival was called Thespo, which is Thespo, named after Thespis, who was a 6th century Greek playwright, who was the first person credited to who has started dialogue. Until then, actors spoke directly to an audience, like I'm doing to you, and he was the first person who got actors to speak to each other. So in honor of him is why people are called Thespians, and since we were trying to be a little bit more updated at the time, we named it Thespo. And it started off as a festival, and it served to fill a gap for people under the age of 25 who really wanted to get involved in the theatre in some way. And remarkably, it still exists. That was all the way back in 1999. today we are in 2022. It's obviously evolved. It's no longer just a festival showcasing work. There's now training programs, and we try and constantly look at what is it that young people starting out in the theatre want and need. What is the gap that we can serve? So along with QTP, which is the theatre company that I work for, we also run this project called TESPO, which is essentially to try and help young people connect with the theatre. And this concept of being mindful of the gap is quite important, because that is really the credo of TESPO. What is it that young people need? So when there weren't that many training opportunities, trying to create training opportunities through workshops and interactions with professional theatre people became a large driving force. Currently, we are looking at even creating international connections. And by when I say we, I don't mean me. I am too old now. TESPO is young, and it is run by young people. And what it has done, interestingly, is it has created another league of people who are arts managers and stage managers and directors and writers, along with all the actors and things like that. Today, it's hard-pressed to switch on a OTT performance or a film and not find at least 1, 2 or 3 people who over the years have been connected with TESPO. And that's not saying that TESPO is responsible for where they are today, but that at a particular time in their life, when they needed a connection with the arts, TESPO was there to cover that need. And today we look at trying to make young people in India interact with other young people around the world in the arts. And if ever there were a need for arts, I guess now is the time, and connection now is the time, when the world is so divisive and we are struggling to find nuance and connection with each other. So that's what TESPO's been about for the last few years. And that also has meant that the world, especially because of the digital platform, the needs of the theatre have changed. The theatre has shifted into becoming a place of connection. So within the TESPO format, there have been a lot more interactions in this digital world. These 2 years of pandemic have been difficult. Theatres around the world have shut. We've struggled to find out, hey, do we have a meaning anymore? So there is a lot of digital performance that happens online. Now, whether you call it phygital, which our friends in Calcutta, the Red Curtain, title this, which is physical and digital theatre combined, or do you call them Zoom plays, or you call them e-theatre, or whatever you like. I like to think of them as live online performances. And they're wonderful. And they have opened up a new medium. And what is really exciting is the way young people have responded to that. For us, oldies, we're trying to recreate a theatre experience in an online world. And in the 2 years, I think we've discovered that's not possible. It is a new thing. It is a new experience. But using softwares like OBS or things like that, the younger people have really been able to do incredible, remarkable work. Theatron from Pune, for example, there's multiple camera setups that actors walk through, and it's all performed live. So it's happening at that moment. And that liveness that I spoke about earlier on retains. The only problem is the actors don't feel it off the audience in the same way. And that's a bit of a loss. And that also brings me to where the hell does theatre go from here? And it's an important point. Because people have been saying the theatre is going to die. Especially now. Oh, pandemic. Oh, people coming together. One of the problems with the theatre is it is innately a live medium. It's innately a medium where you need to be in the same breathing space as the performer or as your other audience members. The one thing that this pandemic taught us about the theatre is what really theatre is. And up until now, I personally thought theatre was actor, audience, performing, this interaction in a live space. But I've discovered since that it's actually about actor, audience, and audience members together, witnessing something, connecting with something. And that's a vastly different experience. Because I can receive something on my own, either on my phone or if I'm watching television or whatever. But if I am witnessing something with someone else, even people I don't know, their enjoyment of something permeates to me. And that is a shared experience. We experience something together. And I find that magical and wonderful. So the theatre is a lovely place. And I think the future of the theatre is the fact that it is going to be more necessary than ever before. Ben Cameron, in the post-2001 fiasco, talked about the theatre being one of the few places where you go and look at people with generosity and curiosity, because of you're constantly being told, look at your neighbor, report suspicious behavior, all of that. And I think today, more than ever, those words ring true, because it's one of the few places that we can go and sit and watch someone with curiosity and generosity and not look at them with suspicion behind the mask. Suspicion that, oh my God, are they going to give us something? And I'm not saying that it will be easy, but I think the theatre has a huge role in healing us from this pandemic. I don't know if any of the work I have ever done in the theatre or in any place has made a difference to anyone's life. What I do know is that the theatre has made a difference to my life and made me a better human being. It's filled my gap, as it were. Thank you.